we'll do the tear down on this 241. Let me drain the fuel real quick. Alright, so what's everybody think about these? My dad's had one for a few years cutting his firewood. Just runs a 14 on it. And he loves the little thing. And I kind of like these 40, 50cc saws myself. Now, I don't think these ever really took on. They're kind of expensive. That decomp's messed up. I'll have to fix that. But these are kind of expensive for what they are. Just a little 40cc saw, and they were right there, close to the price of a 261. But we'll see what's all involved taking it apart. We'll see what condition it's actually in once we get taken apart. Set that off to the side a little bit. Unloom these wires and they'll sit right there. Look at that. Alright, pop that cap off. These wires can slide out the side. Slide out the side. That'll stay there. Take out these two screws. This card box will come this way. Get the spark plug out of the way first, that'll help. So what I did is I just shoved the fuel line through just enough to get this well out of the way, like so. Take off this cylinder mount. Let's set these screws back in here so we don't lose them. Well, I guess since the coil is on the cylinder, we'll get that right out of the way too. Alright, so that gets all this out of the way now. What methods do you guys like to use? I normally use a plastic scraper, get rid of all the big gunk, and different brushes to get in all the nooks and crannies. Probably should invest in a parts washer, or like a giant hot take would be nice with the jets. Throw the whole thing in there, let it blast around, blast all. Right here's what I normally use, just plastic bristles. And I sanded the end to a nice point. Kind of like a scraper, you can get in there. Get all the stuff out of the nooks and crannies. Ow, the spikes ate me. Watch those spikes. Just like that. And being plastic, not going to mess up any paint that is underneath it. I will say that is one nice thing about some of the dirtier stuff, is that oil sawdust concoction normally doesn't hurt the powder coat. And when they are nice and clean, they actually clean up really well. Get all the junk out of the nooks and crannies. Once we get that far, then we can blow it off again. Try and get them as clean as possible before we take off the cylinders. So like I said, I'll keep working on this for a little bit. Get all the major stuff out of the way. These areas. And we'll get the bench all cleaned off again. and be able to tear this down the rest of the way. Alright, that's pretty clean. So we'll see what we have. Piston don't look too bad. Couple little marks on it. It's like some carbon scoring maybe. Let's look at the cylinder. So it's front fed. Yeah, we got quad uppers, stratos, a little intake. Exhaust don't look too bad. It's almost just been a little bit of carbon got in there, squished up the piston a little bit. But that'll clean up easy enough. The rings are both free. So we'll get this all cleaned up, do some machine work, and we'll get it all ported up. Alright, seeing how the coil is actually bolted to the cylinder. We can't just go lowering this all wild and crazy. So I'm going to drop the gasket, see what the squish is at right now. And depending on where it's at, we might just do a gasket delete on this one. Just so we don't have to slot those coil holes all crazy. But we'll see where it lands real quick. Alright, so with just a quick gasket delete, checking it. It's right at 15 thousandths with the gasket out. So we'll set that, we'll cut the squish. And we're just going to take 8 or 10 thousandths. Get us close to that 25,000 squish. Because it's already getting pretty close to rubbing this post on the flywheel. So we'll get this set up, we'll get this cut. Then we'll come back and lay it out for porting. So we got the chamber cut on the 241. See, we just took enough to set the squish right at 20 thousandths. This 241 with just a gasket delete was a little bit tight. It was right around 15, 16 thousandths. So we took 5 thousandths out of the squish. Got that all set up. And now we'll set up the degree wheel and see where the ports land. Get down there. Just eyeball top dead center real close. Turn it on. Make sure it's in the ballpark. Now with the degree wheel, this digital one, set it right at intake close. Zero it. Go all the way to the top. Go past top. Come back down. Right there. Intake close again. 140 degrees. So that means we bring it right up here. Split that in half. Right there. Set it at 70. Now that is true top dead center. That's accounting for the dwell and everything else in the rod. Lined up with top of the port. Exhaust 1092. Write that down in our handy dandy notebook. Alright, now we'll check the transfers. Kind of handy, look through the decomp hole. Make sure you can see both of them. Sometimes they're staggered. Looks like both tips are opening about the same on this. So open 125.6. So we will round that up. We'll call that 126. So the port numbers on this: 70 intake, 109 exhaust, 126 transfers. Alright, so I'll clean off a ring. We'll get that set in here. That's set in the cylinder, then we can lay it out. I am going to set it up 106 on the exhaust and 123 on the transfers. Now that should keep power right around the... Now that setup should keep the peak power right around that 9,000, 9,500 range. But with the added compression and added area, should be able to flow a bit better along with the muffler mod. And we'll bump up the overall power output. I got the ring in there. We'll set the transfers first, 123. Right there. Put a mark in with our handy dandy Sharpie. One little swoop, just like so. Now we'll set the exhaust. "106. Alright, you can see we went with 123 on the transfers. And that's basically just going to flatten the uppers out. And you can't see with the ring in there. I'm letting the Sharpie dry. But it's got the exhaust marked at 106. So in this, we got 106 on the exhaust, 123 transfers. We'll leave the intake at 70. With a nice wide skirt like that on the piston, we can add some width to the exhaust port. That'll give us some more area, let things flow. Another thing we're going to do, we're going to notch this extension to help feed these lowers a little bit. That line right there is where the piston stops at bottom dead center. So that'll just help it flow in a little bit better. Now, the 500i and a couple of the other Stihls, they have the case where it just has a tunnel. So you can't really notch those, doesn't gain anything. But I am going to notch this just to help it flow in there a little bit better. Alright, here's the finish, 241 cylinder. Widen the exhaust, set that, 106. Raise the transfers. Those are set at 123, left the intake alone. And we cut the chamber just enough to set the squish. Squish is right at 20 thousandths. Still a couple super fine little marks there on the piston, but that'll be okay for what we're doing. So we'll take this wheel off and we'll start putting this back together. Alright, looks like we have just enough room to do it that way without having to slot the coil. So I got that on there. Take our gapper out. Alright, we're going to put a decomp plug in. Okay. Put the spark plug back. Alright, let's get this recoil back on. Now 40 cc's, it's not really that big of a saw. I think that's probably why they didn't take on here in the States. This and the 261 are super close in price. Or they were when they were selling. But does anybody else have one of these 241s? Or a go-to 40cc saw? Kind of a handy size. But unless they really run well, the 50cc's got a decent bit more power and not really that much weight. But I'd love to hear from you guys that do have them or wanted one, or shoot, let me know why you didn't get one. Let me know why you went with 50cc's. That'll work too. Oh, got the recoil on. Throw the handle back on. Put a little bit of grease on the bearing. Alright. Throw the air filter back on it. So here's the muffler mod we went with. Small stainless steel deflector. Nice size hole underneath. And we just split it through the seam so it'll tuck right in there. Just like so. Get this bolted up. Got the muffler on, top cover on, then we'll be able to fuel it up. Alright, moment of truth. Make sure it fires up. Well, here's the Ported 241 results. We got 3.39 horse stock to 4.43 Ported. And 2.49 foot-pounds to 2.17. You can see since we couldn't drop that base a lot, the bump in torque wasn't crazy, just because we didn't drop that base a lot. Didn't add a whole lot of extra compression. But it definitely picks up top now. But you can see we definitely gained a lot more horsepower than we did torque. But that's okay, it's only a 40cc saw. It's going to spend most of its time up here, limbing and doing smaller wood and everything. It gained, I don't know, 32-33% in horsepower and 13-14% in torque. Which that's not too awful bad considering we didn't drop it a lot and get a whole bunch of compression. But overall, pretty happy with this build. Nice solid gain in power. Right up here where you're going to use it on a little saw. Really good throttle response. And it should make somebody a dandy firewood saw at that. A lot of people seem to like these 241s. What do you guys think? Are they worth the hype? I don't know. Looking at these numbers, it's definitely up there. Right with maybe a touch better than some of the modern 50cc's. Definitely behind a couple of them, but it is noticeably lighter, smaller package. But I don't know, they just didn't sell that well. They were awful expensive new. Seems most people favored the 50cc's, but let me know what you guys think. Alright, thanks a lot everyone.